Good question here from one of the members of my Aussie online entrepreneurs, Neil. What do you look for when you're thinking about launching a product on Amazon? Well, I can tell you that the things I look for, there's 4 of them actually, certainly to begin with anyway, that I look for, and they're the same no matter where I'm launching, whether that's Amazon or eBay or Etsy or Walmart or wherever it may be, even my own DTC store. What I look for? Let me show you exactly what I look for so that you can look for it too. Number 1, I look at demand. Like if there isn't a demand for your product, it's just impossible to make sales, impossible to make your business work. It just isn't going to work. And that's why on Amazon, it's very, very difficult to launch a brand new product onto the marketplace because of the way that Amazon works. Amazon is a search engine. So to make sales, a customer has to at least have an awareness about the issue that they're wanting to solve and an awareness about how they're going to solve that. Okay. And that then becomes them typing something into the search in an effort to solve the problem that they've got. Okay. So Amazon, if you're going to sell on Amazon, your stuff needs to have some search volume or it isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. There's other platforms where, that is the opposite, and they're discovery platforms for discovering new ideas. Kickstarter, for instance, the Grommet, for instance. You could argue that Facebook and TikTok can be used in that way as well, but certainly not a search engine. You've got to start with demand. There has to be demand there, okay? So that changes already the way we think about the product, because now we've got to think to ourselves, to make a success on Amazon, I have to find an existing product with high demand and make it better. That's the strategy for Amazon. Okay, you can't come up with a brand new product. That's not how Amazon works. You won't get found. So instead, you've got to find an existing product category with high demand and then make your thing better so that usurps all the other products and you get your slice of the pie. Okay, so it's different. That brings us very, very neatly to differentiation. So your product has to be able to be differentiated. You've got to be able to stand out. And again, I'm going to talk specifically about Amazon. So there's different ways of standing out on Amazon, indeed in business, but specifically for Amazon, the way that you stand out is twofold, okay? Way number 1 is at this point. This is the search engine results page, okay? This is what customers see when they first type in their search. So you have to stand out here. How do you stand out here? Well, Amazon tells you how to do it. They tell you by showing you what gets the most real estate on the page. And what does get the most real estate on the page? On all of these listings, like that's one listing, that's one listing, that's another listing. What gets the most real estate on that page? Normally you've got that area there and the image. And the image is 70% of this total surface area of that particular product in this search engine results page. That tells you that Amazon believes 70% or more of the decision-making process at this point is image-based. And we have to assume they're testing the shit out of that to see. That's a good assumption to make. So anyway, first thing you've got to be able to differentiate is the image, okay, is the image. So what are these? Garden Kneeler set. These are. So that's a very, very different image because it's a different color. That's also a different kind of image because it's got that toolkit on the end of it. So when you're thinking about your product and making a difference to your product, you have to take into consideration this. It's so fundamental. If you make a differentiation to the product that's genius, like you take this kind of boring product here, and what you've done is you've altered the screws that are used at the point of the joints. So now the joints are super strong and they will last longer and it won't break so easily based on all your research. That's important. But who's going to get to see that? At this point, who on earth gets to see that? Nobody. Nobody. So your differentiation has to take into consideration that this is where your customer comes first. Okay. So that's one point of differentiation. Next point of differentiation is when you get them to click, you need some reason for them to buy. And that could be, oh, well, the joints are rose jointed and they've been welded in a certain way. And so they're stronger. And so this product lasts a lot longer. Great. That would work here. That would work here, but it wouldn't work on the SERPs. Does that make sense? So your differentiation has to take into consideration both of those two things. Otherwise, whilst your product may be better, nobody will find it, which comes back to demand, okay? Which is why demand is number one. Next, competition. So competition, you've got to think about how can you be better than your competition? And being better, everybody usually just thinks price and reviews. Well, if your product has not got a way of standing out at this point where the customer has got the ability to make that comparison based upon images, reviews, and price, if you haven't got a way to stand out at this point, then you leave your customers no choice but to judge you on price and reviews. Okay, that's all they get to choose. You've put them into that situation by not giving them a way to effectively separate your product out from all the other bump that's out there. Okay, so you don't want to do that. If your product is good and you've differentiated in such a way that it's obvious at this point, price and reviews don't matter. They don't matter. You'll get to carve out a new market because of that. Last one I'm going to suggest you go look at is the economics. My oldest daughter, 15 years old, just about 10, 15, hated maths until she started thinking about being a fashion designer. And then I sat down with her and I showed her what being a fashion designer is all about. And we started talking about how she could be a designer and what that meant, how she could build a business around that. And so I linked that whole thing together for her. And now she thinks maths is very, very important. Most schools don't do that for us. They link up maths for us. And so most people have got this weird aversion to maths because of that. But maths is very important in business, specifically your expenses versus your income, the most important thing. So it's hugely important to work out from the get-go if you can afford to launch a product. And that starts by thinking about, well, what are the fees and charges that Amazon's going to take from me to be on their platform, you know? So commissions, what's those? Are there any taxes I've got to pay in the form of going into the country, for instance, in the form of tariffs or anything like that? Is there anything I've got to pay going into the country? Like everything, you've got to list it all out so you can understand if you can afford it. What's it going to cost me for PPC in this particular marketplace? Can I afford to do PPC and still make money? If I can't, I need to figure something else out. I've got to figure out how I can launch on Amazon without PPC. When you can do that, absolutely. But it isn't as easy. It isn't as easy to do. Amazon PPC is pretty easy to do, not as easy to do. So you've got to think about that too. Okay. So the economics are very, very important. And a thing that most people don't mention when they talk about having a product that makes $360,000 a year, for instance, like the project we first looked at. Well, to make that sales, $360,000 a year, 40 sales a day, to make 40 sales a day, you need 40 units of stock. But you don't just need it for one day, you actually need it for around about 90 days. So you actually need around 90 days worth of stock as your first order. If you're planning on making 40 sales a day, then yeah, that's what, 360 pieces, 36,000 pieces, sorry, of that particular product as your first order. 3,600, my apologies. Yes, thank you, Mary. Yeah, so you've got to think about that as well. So that's another consideration to make. Okay, so the economics are important. That was a video from the regular Monday night Q&A session with the members of the Aussie online entrepreneurs. There's over 2,500 of us now, not just here in Australia, indeed right around the world, and growing. We're the fastest growing community of professional e-commerce entrepreneurs, certainly here in Australia. Sales, by the way, of over $50 million. If you'd like to find out more about what we do, a couple of different ways of doing that. Of course, you should absolutely subscribe to this channel, post brand new money making information each and every day, but you should also get yourself off to www.aussieonlineentrepreneurs.com.au, or you can just Google that, Aussie Online Entrepreneurs, and then you'll find us that way too. With that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. But remember to subscribe, and if you've got any questions or comments, comment below and I'll answer them personally for you. With that being said, bye.